The Pittsburgh Penguins made history on Monday night, but not the kind of history that you would like to be making. Hunter and I are going to break down an awful loss to the Dallas Stars and more on this edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast.
Your Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick Damp. You can follow me on all social media at synonym for wet. Joined as always by the one and only my co-host, Hunter Hodes. You can follow him on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can give our show's Twitter account a follow at LO_Penguins. And of course, we appreciate you making this part of your daily routine. And don't forget that we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. Plus, if you're following us on YouTube, don't forget to hit that notification button so you can be one of the first people to watch our Monday through Friday episodes every single day. And before we get started, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, and new customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I am back from Mexico for the show. I missed 2 episodes. I hear that not only the sun roasted me, but Jesse and Hunter also roasted me yesterday. So I'm all kinds of burned. And so are the Pittsburgh Penguins, because oh boy, did they get absolutely whooped on Monday night by the Dallas Stars 7-1. And as I said in the introduction, according to the preeminent Penguins historian Bob Grove, they set history in that game, giving up 6 goals in the first period of a home game for the first time in franchise history. So this wasn't just a loss, Hunter. This was complete and utter domination by the Dallas Stars. And it is one thing to lose. It's one thing to be in tight games and realize, okay, this team is not a Stanley Cup contender. But if you lose 5-4, 6-4, 3-2, 3-1, whatever, by a goal or two and an empty netter, you lick your wounds today and go, you know what, that Dallas Stars team, that's a bona fide Stanley Cup contender. They're one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. We are not. But it's quite another to not only get embarrassed, but get embarrassed on your home ice and have it happen starting 3 minutes into the game. I obviously did not get to watch this game in real time. I was on a flight back from Dallas, funny enough, so I did not see this game, but I watched the condensed game this morning. I read all the recaps I could read. I watched the goal highlights and some of the bigger highlights, and this was just not a competitive hockey game whatsoever. This wasn't, oh, the Penguins had 3 or 4 to 5 bad minutes or a bad period and it went as bad as it could go. This game was decided 3 minutes in. As soon as Dallas took a 1-0 lead, this game was just over. It was over, and there was no doubt who was going to win this one. And it's an unacceptable effort top to bottom, both from the players to the coaching staff. And I'll even say this one for a little bit, the management, because this is a roster that is just not up to snuff whatsoever. So I'm going to leave it there, Hunter. I know you've got a lot to get off your chest for this one. So the floor is yours. Empty the clip.
I mean, again, you want to lose games this year? Okay, that's totally fine. I expected this team to miss the playoffs, so losing, I expected it heading into this year. But you can't keep getting pathetic performances like these and nothing happens after. This, at least for this loss for this season last night, is rock bottom so far. That was an embarrassing effort in the first period. Nobody showed up to the rink. Not a single player showed up to the rink. Maybe Evgeny Malkin actually did. I thought Evgeny Malkin competed very hard throughout that game. Other than that, even Anthony Beauvillier got his goal. I don't really think anyone showed up to the rink last night. The coaching staff definitely didn't show up to the rink. It's funny, when Dallas took a 3 or 4-0 lead, hey, it'd be cool if Mike Sullivan maybe wanted to call timeout to calm his guys down. No, it was just ho-hum. I'm just going to continue with the timeout in my back pocket. You've seen countless coaches do that over the years to try and calm the team down, get them back into it. He didn't want to do that at all. Why? I feel like he doesn't do it nearly as often as he should, and it's so frustrating to me. But seeing the way they defended in this game, after the way they played against Washington on Friday, which I felt was their best performance of the year, it's just like, what the heck? I mean, that game could have been at least something of a building block for this team, the way they were able to beat Washington and be the better team, especially in the third period. Jesse and I were talking about that so much during our Monday episode where, they defended the best they've defended in the third period. And then that all goes out the window on Monday against Dallas. Everyone was running around like headless chickens in their own zone. I believe it was the third goal from Mason Marchment. Yes, that one made me laugh out loud. Seeing the way that he was able to get behind both Letang and Grzelcyk, they really weren't making any effort to try and play that play right. It's just like, what kind of effort is that? And Matt Grzelcyk is not an NHL defenseman at this point. He could really use quite a few games upstairs at this rate right now. He's been awful this season, even worse than where he was last year. I think if you were to deal him right now, I don't think any team is calling, considering how bad he's been. So it's just a really gross effort. There was no pushback whatsoever. There was no fight in this team. I just wanted to see them try and show some pride, but they didn't even want to do that, Pat. That was what was so disheartening about this loss, was that they didn't show any pride. They didn't show any fight. They just allowed the Stars to keep toying with them throughout that entire game. And the Stars, they let up those final 40 minutes. They knew the game was over. They were just kind of screwing around, not really trying that hard in the final 40 minutes. They probably could have gotten to 10 if they really wanted to, and it would have been funny if they did. But that's not good enough. It's not even close. That is rock bottom for this team this year. And I would not be surprised if Kyle Dubas starts doing some pretty drastic things to this team. And it could start with the head coach. I mean, I've been out on him for quite a bit now. This is the type of loss that should get him fired, but though we've been saying that for these last several big losses they've had this year, and even going back to last year at times, I just don't know if the management wants to do it, even though, again, I think they should be doing it.
Yeah, and we're going to talk more about Mike Sullivan in the second segment. The thing that I keep coming back to right now is the defensive miscues, because listen, you guys talked about it on Monday. They put up an absolutely defensive clinic against the Capitals in the third period over the weekend. And the thing about that is, are the Caps on the same level as the Dallas Stars? No. The Caps are a team that's much improved. They're likely to make the playoffs, maybe win a round, but they're not Stanley Cup contenders. The Dallas Stars, on the other hand, bona fide Stanley Cup contenders. They are one of the best teams in the league. And while you expect that, hey, this Penguins team that is doing this retooling on the fly, this kind of, hey, we're going to try to get guys on one-year deals, rebuild their value, and then toss them aside come the trade deadline, you expect them to at least compete. And they did not compete last night. You mix that with absolute disarray in the defensive zone, and you get last night's result. And I can understand the frustration from some of these players. I absolutely can. And before we toss to the second segment, which we're going to talk about the head coach as well as some other stuff with the management, this to me is the most embarrassing part. You look up and down this roster. There are no blue, green, whatever you want to call it, rookies. Guys who are new to the NHL, guys who are just getting their feet wet. Yeah, sure, Yoel Blomqvist, but he didn't have a whole heck of a lot of help in front of him last night. But these are guys who have been in the National Hockey League for multiple years. These are guys who have played hockey at the highest level, at the pinnacle, for multiple years. What kind of effort is that? And I hate doing that as a guy with a podcast who topped out at Division II club hockey, because I don't have any clue what it's like to play hockey at the professional level. I don't. But you watch that effort last night and just wonder, what the hell was that? Because where's the pride? Where's the effort? And yeah, it's an 82-game season. You have nights where you just go, you know what? We don't have it tonight. We'll just burn the boats, burn the tape, and get back at it next game and practice in the morning. But you come off of a massive win against one of your biggest rivals, who is looking like a team that's going to make the playoffs. And then you have a chance to make a statement against a bona fide Stanley Cup contender, and you just don't. You just no-show. And to me, that's one of the more unacceptable parts of last night's loss.
But it feels like they've had way too many efforts like that this season so far, even outside of this game against Dallas, which I do think for this season so far, again, is rock bottom. It started opening night against the Rangers where you were completely outclassed. Then you have the game against Edmonton, for example. You were completely outclassed. Vancouver, at least not to start the game, but after, they completely outclassed you. Winnipeg, after you had a good start, they outclassed you after. I mean, they've been outclassing everyone in the league to start the year, considering they won 14 of their first 15 games, and they're looking like a bona fide contender. But you've had all these types of efforts throughout the season. And when does ownership and the front office step in and say, this is pathetic, this is not what we envisioned, and something needs to change? Whether it's firing the head coach, making a big shakeup trade, something. You can't keep running this same product out night after night and expect fans to show up. There were fans that left after the first period yesterday, and I don't blame them whatsoever. I feel awful for everyone that went to that game yesterday and got to see that slop in person. That was pathetic. It's one day after the Steelers got a big win against the Commanders. The Steelers are flying high this year. The city is at least galvanized by that team, and they're trying to bring that over to the Penguins. And after the Penguins had their big win against the Capitals, 2-2 in DC. But how do you bring out that type of effort on home ice against a contender? Something's got to change, man.
It probably does. And Hunter and I are going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the head coach as well as a pretty blistering report from our pal Taylor Haas. But we will get into that in the second segment when we return. But first, we've got to tell you about a couple sponsors, starting with Select Quote. The World Series, the Super Bowl, the Olympics. The world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. Select Quote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance, and they can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. Select Quote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. You invest so much time to take care of yourself and to be the healthiest, best version of you. Select Quote's exclusive policies can help reward that effort. If you are in good health, they work with carriers that could get you same-day coverage for up to $5 million with no medical exam required. And these policies are more affordable than you might think. You could get coverage for up to $1 million for as little as $20 per month. Head to selectquote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. Select Quote, you shop, they save. Get the right insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Just go to selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. And we're not done. We got to tell you about our other sponsor, and that is FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. All right, welcome back to the Tuesday edition of Locked On Penguins. I'm Patrick Damp, joined as always by Hunter Hodes, and we're working our way through what was just an absolutely embarrassing loss for the Pittsburgh Penguins on Monday night, 7-1 against the Dallas Stars. And it, like we said, it was absolutely zero contest. This one was decided in the first 3 minutes. And before we get into the discussion about head coach Mike Sullivan, let's quickly touch upon what our pal Taylor Haas reported late last night following the game on DK Pittsburgh Sports. I'm going to read this verbatim just to make sure that she gets her flowers for this. I don't want to misinterpret anything that she reported. So here we go. She says, a league source told me earlier this week that Kyle Dubas has made it known to other teams that, quote, everyone is available except 87, end quote. And while Dubas has done well to replenish the pool with picks and prospects over the last year or so, the objective of any near future moves wouldn't be to add more futures. Rather, it would be to acquire actual players back, since this isn't a quote, tear it down to the studs rebuild, end quote, yet, as Dubas likes to say. He remains committed to trying to win with at least Crosby. Ownership made that promise to Crosby over the summer that the Penguins would be better this season. So that's a lot to unpack. And I get what Kyle Dubas is trying to do here. I understand that, yes, they want to try to win with Crosby right now. I still maintain my thought process that they're kind of punting on this season because they're going to have more cap space in the years ahead. Plus, they're going to have some younger guys who are going to be ready to go. But I look at this team's situation, especially with the salary cap, and I don't see how you can move a lot of these guys. Ryan Graves, Tristan Jarry, Erik Karlsson, those are contracts that'll be damn near impossible to move. And then, yeah, you can maybe try to move Chris Letang, but we got to be honest with ourselves here. As much as we love him, as good as he's been in his career, his value is pretty low this year. He has not been good for more than maybe a couple of games. Erik Karlsson, that is a contract that's going to be incredibly difficult to move because he's still got 3 years left on it, and you don't want to be wasting a retainment slot on that contract. 71, yeah, maybe you can move him, but I don't think he wants to. He also has a no movement clause, so he has to agree to it. And I get what he's trying to do. He's trying to light a fire to say, you guys are all up for sale if you don't figure this out. And maybe that works, maybe it doesn't, but count me skeptical as saying that there's going to be a ton of trades made between now and the trade deadline.
He's obviously fed up with how this season is going. I don't even think he personally envisioned the team being this bad through the first month of the season, but I definitely agree with you. I do think he's trying to at least wake this team up, saying, okay, if you're not going to play at least a little bit better, I'm just going to have trade calls with teams, and I'm just going to dangle all of you out there on the trade market. I agree. I don't think Evgeny Malkin is going to get moved. He also has a full no move clause, so he controls where he plays. I don't think he wants to leave Sidney Crosby. He has said so many times in interviews that he wants to finish his career with Sidney Crosby. So I don't think he goes anywhere. Chris Letang, I've seen people out there speculate like, oh, I don't think he finishes his career with the Penguins. I have to disagree, honestly. And yes, I know that Letang has been really bad this year. People don't want to talk about it. Everyone's been focusing on Erik Karlsson. Chris Letang has been worse than Erik Karlsson this year, and I don't really think it's been that close. Letang's skating is completely gone. His offensive production hasn't been there this year. His defending hasn't been there. At least you've gotten some offense out of Erik Karlsson. He's made some really strong plays in the offensive zone. It's just his defense is worse this year compared to last year. Letang, his entire game has fallen off. But again, I don't think a lot of people are talking about that, even though it's true. I don't think he goes anywhere. I also think he wants to finish his career with 71 and 87. I could be wrong. Everyone else, I can understand being on the market. Even Erik Karlsson, though, that's going to be a hard contract to move, Pat. $10 million. How many teams have that type of space right now to take on that contract? The Penguins also could have to retain in that situation. It would kind of have to be a mess of a trade, I think. Lars Eller, he's obviously probably out there. Marcus Pettersson, we've been talking about that for a while. Rickard Rakell, I'm sure could be out there as well for the right price. He's been great to start the season. I think you could get a package back that could definitely help you for the future. I'm not really sure that could help you right now because you saw in Taylor's article, they want to get pieces that can help right now. And it's like, I don't know. Like, you want to keep building for the future, but are you really trying to salvage this season? That Taylor's report was very good. Don't get me wrong. I would never question her reporting. She's one of the best Penguins reporters out there. I'm just kind of questioning Dubas's motive with the trades if he goes down that path, because why are you trying to get pieces for right now when you've been talking about this rebuild on the fly, retool on the fly that can help you next season and in seasons after that? I guess that's where I'm kind of just questioning a little bit. But there was still nothing in that article, at least, about the head coach. And that's, again, not anyone's fault. I'm sure, again, she did a great job with that article. But there has to come a point in time where enough is enough with this head coach. I really thought heading into the season, they would at least be in the playoff mix, but miss the playoffs. This is below expectations. Someone has to answer for this. And this head coach has not won a playoff series in 6 years now. And he is well past his expiration date. I understand firing him may not change much about this team with the way they're playing, but you have to try something. He is here way past his expiration date. He's not getting enough out of these players. It looks like the message has gone stale. It's not enough. And for as quick as Mike Sullivan will probably get another job in the NHL, a change has to be made. I don't know why the front office and the ownership remain steadfast in not doing it, but I feel like after rock bottom last night, you got to really do something to shake things up, and I think that would be a really big way to do it.
Right. And here's the thing. I'm mostly with you because what I'm about to say is going to kind of go through the gambit here. It's going to sound like I'm hedging. It's going to sound like I'm trying to take both sides of the fence here because this is a weird position for the Penguins to be in right now because I know, and I'll start here. I know everybody loves to sometimes seriously, mostly as a joke, make the point that, hey, in this era of Penguins hockey, they've fired a coach and gone on to win the Stanley Cup. The difference between then and those points and right now is this isn't a contending team.
No.
Those teams in 2009 and 2016, definitely 2009, they were bona fide contenders. 2016, you could see the bones of a contender, though they weren't playing like it, and then they became one. But this time, they're not that. So the problem with that is you fire the coach. What do you really achieve here? Because this team is not very good. But to that end, this team wasn't built to contend this year. They weren't built to win a Stanley Cup. What they were built to do was be around the margins, sniff around the playoff picture, and send all the guys who help you get to that point out for futures and prospects and draft picks at the trade deadline. The problem is they're not even doing that. Yes, they're 1 point out of the second wild card, but that's because the East is a mess. The East is not very good this year, but at the same time, it's not going to matter if you miss the wild card by 2 points, but there's 6 teams ahead of you that have 1 point or more than you do. So that's the thing that brings me back to, yeah, it's probably time for him to go, is that this team is underachieving even when it was built to essentially underachieve. Then the other side of it that worries me about this, who do you get to replace him? Because I don't want it to be David Quinn. We've seen what he's done in the league with New York and San Jose. That's a tough one. I don't see any upside to making Mike Vellucci the head coach because I know next to nothing about him, and that's just kind of been his career. And then do you really think that Kirk McDonald is ready to make the jump already to the National Hockey League when his resume is basically a bunch of stops as an assistant coach and an associate head coach in the ECHL, and then a bunch of junior teams, and now he's in his first AHL season? I don't see that. So I honestly kind of look at it as he might be the worst, best option right now, unless somebody gets fired over the next couple of weeks that's not Mike Sullivan that you can replace him with. And then I come back to your favorite person, if you can go get him. If you can go get Jay Woodcroft and bring him in, I will be more than happy with that decision. But we also have to factor in the idea of this as well for all potential replacements. What are you coming into? Yeah. Because this isn't a contending team. They're not really that close to contending. They're kind of rebuilding, but kind of not. So what exactly are you being brought in here for? To be a transitional coach to the next guy? To just be another scapegoat? So, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm in agreement that it's probably time to fire Mike Sullivan, but then I play out all the game theory of what happens after you do, and a lot of it looks worse.
Oh, there's no probably about it, Pat. It is beyond time, I think, to make a change here with Mike Sullivan. And I agree, David Quinn would not be the answer. I would prefer Vellucci over Quinn, but it's really not by much. McDonald is definitely not ready. I agree with you on that. Woodcroft would probably be the best option to come in right now. I kind of feel like he got the bad end of a stick in Edmonton, especially with how they started last season. Their goaltending wasn't great. They weren't getting good production. And then he gets let go. And then, the new coach comes in. their goaltending is able to be a bit better. And then obviously McDavid, Draisaitl and company wake up beyond belief. But he is at least someone that can come in here. He would demand respect, I think, from the star players in this locker room. He's been a successful coach before in the NHL. He doesn't have that long of a tenure as a head coach, but I still think he did a really good job in Edmonton. He would be my first call if you do decide to part ways with Mike Sullivan. Now, if you want to wait until after the season, for example, Jim Montgomery from Boston could be available because the Bruins have not been good. But I think right now, even though the ownership group may not want to fire him right now and eat that $5 million for the rest of the season and then beyond, I just kind of feel like they might not have any choice after what happened last night. And you saw in Taylor's article, which again was fantastic. Her reporting is top notch. Ownership said, oh, we're going to be better this year. You're not better at all. Because heading into this year, I felt like this team, on paper at least, was close to a playoff team. I didn't have them making it, but I had them in the mix. People are saying like, oh, they're performing like how I expected them to. I think you're lying to yourself if you think that. I really personally believe that. That's my opinion. I did not see them playing this bad through the first month of the season. This is in my opinion, roster on paper-wise, similar to the team we saw at the end of last season without Jake Gensel, and that team almost made the playoffs. It's almost, you changed some of the forwards. You brought in Matt Grzelcyk to replace Bill Joseph, who has obviously been awful. You've gotten good goaltending from Blomqvist, and Delkovich has been, at least okay this season. Roster-wise, it's pretty close to what we saw at the end of last season. The team is just performing a lot worse now compared to last season, and while I didn't expect them to be on that heater for this season that you saw at the end of last season, I didn't expect them to be this bad. And I think if some people did, I think they're kind of lying to themselves.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And we'll see what happens if this change gets made today. We will be back and do a quick episode breaking it all down. But until then, right now, Mike Sullivan remains the head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the season continues because last night was not game 82. We've still got more games to play, and we'll have more games to break down. And Hunter and I are going to look at the rest of the week coming up here for the Pittsburgh Penguins real quick. But before we do that, we're going to tell you about our last sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in rewarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get in on the action in sports in over 30 states, including right here in Pennsylvania, California, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and more. And Prize Picks is one of the places where you can get real money daily action that includes an injury insurance policy so that your lineup stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half of the game and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. If you think someone like Connor McDavid will get more than 0.5 goals next week, or if you can get Austin Matthews for even more than that, cook up those hot takes with your friends and win real money this hockey season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. You guys know that I am absolutely terrible at at everyday fantasy, at season-long fantasy, but daily fantasy, brother, that's where I'm cooking, and Prize Picks is one of the best places to do it. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app, use code LOCKEDONNHL, and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, welcome back to the Tuesday edition of Locked On Penguins. I'm Patrick Damp, joined as always by Hunter Hodes, and yeah, as bad as last night felt, as bad as that loss was, the Penguins do still have games to play this week. They will not be using the EA Sports NHL 25 sim the rest of season button. They are going to have to play more games this year. And this week, from here on out, this actually could be a little bit of a reprieve for this team. This actually could maybe put them in better positioning because we have seen the trend continue with the exception of the Caps game this weekend. They play non-playoff teams from last year. They beat them. They play playoff teams from last year. They lose. And they've got 3 games coming up against non-playoff teams. They've got Detroit here in Pittsburgh on Wednesday. Then they head to Columbus on Friday. And then on Saturday, they're back home to play the San Jose Sharks. These are 3 games, Hunter, that they could win.
Yeah, I mean, they've already dominated Detroit at least once this season. They played very well up in Detroit in that game to start the season. That's a game they can definitely win. Columbus, they've been dominating Columbus since Nam at this point. It's pretty rare when Columbus beats the Penguins, either in Columbus or especially in Pittsburgh. It is extremely rare to see the Blue Jackets win in Pittsburgh. And then San Jose, also one of the worst teams in the league, though they've been playing at least a little bit better lately, but they're still not a very good team. I can see the Penguins winning all 3 of these games, but I don't really know, Pat, that it's going to tell me that much, considering that these are non-playoff teams from last year, and these 3 teams are not that good this season. So even if they win all 3 games, like, yeah, it's going to be fun to see them winning those games if they do, but I'm still going to be like, I don't really think that's telling me that much, considering how they've struggled a lot against playoff teams from last year.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is that, yeah, they're playing 3 non-playoff teams, and we've seen that they have the ability to feast upon those teams this season, but what's it matter? Because when they go actually play teams that made the playoffs last year, look like they might make the playoffs this year, they fall apart. So if nothing else, you can treat these 3 games as a building block. If you can get 3 very solid wins, string them together, and you can suddenly find yourself climbing up the standings a little bit and having a little bit of momentum. Maybe it helps out. Maybe it helps you get to a better spot. But then following that, there is absolutely no rest for the wicked, because after they finish with San Jose, they get a couple of days off, and then it's a murderer's row coming to PPG Paints Arena for 4 straight. And then it's Tampa Bay, and then you've got 2 days off. And then you've got a back-to-back, one against Winnipeg, who we know is an absolute wagon this year, one of the best teams in the league. Utah, young upstart team that doesn't look too bad, been kind of back and forth all year. And then you finish this long homestand with the Vancouver Canucks, who you've already had some bad losses against. So we will see, but the Penguins will get the opportunity to bounce back tomorrow, and I would like to, at the very least, see them show some pride against the Red Wings. Go out, do what you did early in the year. You got embarrassed by the New York Rangers on your home ice. You went and played Detroit. Now this time Detroit's coming to you, but you have a chance to bounce back, and it's a place to start.
Yeah, you need to show a response. What you did on Monday against the Dallas Stars was putrid. It was an embarrassment to the fans who paid money to go see you at PPG Paints Arena, and then a good chunk of them left after the first period. It was pathetic. You need to show some type of response in that game. Yeah, the film study is not going to be pretty for basically anyone on Tuesday, but you need to have a quick mind, get that out of your system, and you need to go out there and bully a team like the Red Wings. You need to go out there and take your frustrations out on them after the way the Stars kind of did it to you on Monday, because the Stars have been kind of up and down to start the season. They're still very much a bona fide contender in my mind, but you can see they were taking their frustrations out on the Penguins in that game on Monday. I need to see the same thing for the Penguins reverse-wise to the Red Wings in this game on Wednesday.
For sure. And we will get you set for that game with a brand new episode tomorrow when we come back. But that is going to do it for the Tuesday edition of Locked On Penguins. For Hunter Hodes, I am Patrick Damp. Thank you as always for tuning in, and we will return with a fresh episode for you on Wednesday. Until then, if anything happens, maybe we'll come back, maybe we won't, but we'll see what happens throughout the day. But for now, thanks as always for tuning in, and we will talk to you on Wednesday.